Too late to think of any words that may bring you back to earth. We spin rope around your waist. You turn, you smile, you float away. 'Cause you couldn't find a better place to waste all your time. To waste your time. And you couldn't find a better place to waste all your time tonight.
What's up, guys? Welcome to Fascination Street Podcast, episode number 5. And actually, I need to apologize because on episode number 4 with Brian Langan of the Red River Podcast, I said that it was episode 5. I'm 5 episodes in and I'm already making boo-boos, but sorry about that. So today is episode 5 and it's going to be a little bit different of an episode. We won't necessarily be discussing a specific album or era of The Cure, but we are going to be talking with photographer Ester Segretto. She is an amazing photographer that has photographed everyone from Nine Inch Nails to The Cure. She happens to be a huge Cure fan, and I'm a big fan of her work. So I thought it'd be really cool to talk to her about The Cure, about music photography, and what she's been up to as we are in our quarantine age of life. So here we go, episode number 5 with Ester Segretto. Hey, what's going on, Esther? How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, hanging in there. It's a beautiful day today, finally.
I know, windows open, amazing.
Oh, yeah, I spent as much time outside as I could today. I took my dog for a long walk. I was like, come on, we're going for a walk. It's that kind of day.
Yeah, the cats were very excited. The windows were open.
Yep, so I bet you they were scoping out the neighborhood.
Absolutely.
So thanks so much for coming on the podcast. I've been
What?
thinking
Thanks
about
for
having you
having me.
on. Yeah, I was like, when I moved into my house, I guess it's almost a year now. It was March 18th of last year. I had purchased some photos of yours that grace my walls. One of which happens to be Robert Smith, which is very fitting for the podcast. So I was like,
Of course.
there's
Thank
still
you for
so many.
supporting, by the way.
What'd you say?
Thank you for supporting.
Oh
by the
no,
way.
absolutely. I mean, that's one of the things I've been trying to do most through kind of what's going on these days with the quarantine and people working and everything, is like supporting artists, musicians in any way, shape, or form. You know, a buddy of mine that's a tattoo artist in Texas, when he was all closed down, he started painting. So I immediately bought one of his paintings because I was like, well, how can I give, to someone who can't really do what they normally do right now to make money, but still, support their art. And that was pretty fun. So I have one of Drew's paintings hanging on my wall as well.
Absolutely, yeah. Like buying the merch and buying the music and, watching the live streams and doing all that sort of stuff to support, whether it's, established acts or the local bands or your friends' bands or things like that. That's been so important during quarantine, I think, for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, when I think about the price of concert tickets and, whether you're taking the train in or you're having a couple of drinks, it's a $200 night before you even blink. So
Oh, yeah.
any band that I had tickets for, I tried to either buy a vinyl record, a sweatshirt, a t-shirt, throughout all this, because I was like, I would have spent way more at the concert. I might as well,
Absolutely.
get, support them, get something in return, and, even supporting the venues. I've purchased, a bunch of things from St. Vitus since then, because I want to make sure when the world goes back to normal, I can still go see bands there.
Yes, and they have great merch. So.
Yes. I'm actually wearing one of the shirts right now, believe it or not. Funny that you mentioned that. So I've known you and Pat for quite a while.
Yeah.
And living here in New York, I think as a photographer probably is a blessing and a curse. I mean, all the bands come through New York. There is a lot of, I don't want to say sad, but there's a lot of moodiness living in New York City, and you're able to capture in a very interesting way. And would you say that is something that would you say New York helped you really want to do photography? Like, what got you into it? What was your first, like, I want to do this?
Um, I mean, New York is first of all I've ever known. Like I've always lived here. You know, I grew up in Queens. Um, so I guess that moodiness had to rub off on me at some point. Um, but I guess I've always been into photography in some sort of way. I mean, as far back as I can remember, I always had my own camera as a kid, like crappy point and shoots and things like that.
Yeah,
I always
yeah.
had my own camera, separate from like my parents' camera that I would always take around with me. Um,
Yeah, I remember
but I guess
getting
it,
my first camera for Christmas and I was like so
yeah,
excited. I was like,
yeah, it was like the
I get to
most
capture my
exciting
own
thing.
views. Yeah, it's like very cool. I
Yeah,
mean, granted, it was film and you didn't know what it was going to look like until
but that's
you
part of
finish
the
the roll.
excitement. It's part of the excitement.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I grew up shooting film. I mean, I shot film till my 20s, really,
yeah,
exclusively film because digital wasn't a thing. But I guess I didn't start shooting as an art form until high school. And I
right.
got really into it in high school and just you know declared that's what I wanted to do with my life. In a very I guess teenage way.
Yeah,
I had figured out.
this is what I'm going to do. I don't want to sit behind a
Yeah, yeah,
desk.
yeah, exactly. I'm going to be a photographer, and I guess it just kind of made sense that the things that I loved the most were music and photography. So without really thinking about it, they just sort of came together.
Yeah,
I probably started photographing local bands and friends' bands probably when I was like 17 or 18, just going to local shows and then just doing like, portraits of them and things like that. And
yeah. I mean,
it grew from there.
coming from New York with such a strong DIY music scene, was definitely probably beneficial. I mean, there were tons of clubs, tons of bands, and this
Yeah.
was pre social media.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like you actually had to have like a photograph for a quote unquote press kit or for a flyer or for the inside of your
Right.
CDs you were
Yeah.
making. So I remember, we would reach out to everybody we knew that took photos. It was a big deal because we didn't have these insane camera phones. you know,
Oh, yeah, of
I mean,
course.
my friend Pam has been unearthing tons of photos, and she like found photos that she took. God, 98, 99 when we first started Taking Back Sunday, and we were like, "Can you take promo shots of us? And can you take pictures of us live? Because, you couldn't just set that up and do that." And it's so cool to see. I mean, there really is something so different and warm about like film photography, and I think it's very
Yeah.
much the same these days with music. I can hear the difference between music recorded to like tape in an old school recording studio as opposed to the super digital recordings these days that you can do in your bedroom. So it's
Right,
it's
right.
very it's very similar in that way that yeah, the technology has advanced, but there's still something so like warm and romantic about film.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not, nowadays you can always sort of source that afterwards. Like, oh, hey, who was at that show? Who has some cool shots of blah, blah, blah. Like, if you didn't know that someone was in the audience shooting for you, there, there's nothing that existed of that show, to look back at.
Right, because you couldn't
So
just
it's
simply post on Facebook, "Yo, who's got pictures? Send them to me."
exactly, exactly. You couldn't just crowdsource, after the fact, like the next morning, like, oh, hey, did anyone happen to capture, so and so jumping into the crowd, like,
Yeah. That's those I love when those photos pop up. I think even sometimes when I look at old videos on YouTube of shows that I know I was at, I'm like trying to find myself in the crowd. I'm like, oh, there I am. Granted, I'm like 40 pounds skinnier because right now I would not jump that way off that stage onto those people's heads. I'm
no,
I'm
I,
just
I would
about
seriously
43 years
injure
old. I can't
myself.
do this.
Yeah, I would injure myself before I even got up on the stage, let alone jumping off of the stage.
Yeah, I mean those were the days.
Yeah, exactly.
So some of the pictures that I purchased from you was let's see, Robert Smith, and that was shot at Madison Square Garden, I believe.
Correct.
Okay, MSG, and then Dave Gahan and
Yeah.
Trent Reznor.
Yes.
So
So
I'm that's those are three pretty big, amazing names.
like a trifecta there.
Yeah, I mean, as someone who grew up loving that music, what is it like to shoot a band that you love? I mean, is it more nerve wracking than just shooting another band, or have you found a
Well,
way to kind of separate that?
I mean, I'd like to say that I've found a way to be completely professional and separate that, but I haven't. I mean, it's it's a
Yeah,
really sort of intense, giddy happiness, but it's mixed with terror and anxiety at the same time because you're afraid you're going to screw it up when
yeah,
it's those bands that you love, those bands that mean so
hmm,
much to you, and you're afraid you won't do them justice somehow, or you'll be upset with yourself because you didn't do what you think is your best on something that's so important for you. And I mean, obviously, I go into every shoot wanting to do my best and wanting to do a
right.
great job, but there's like so much added pressure on myself that I put on myself when it's a band that I love.
Yeah, because
Um,
when you think about it, so
yeah,
the Cure's been playing live music for 40 years. You've got 40
yeah,
years of people photographing them, and
yeah,
you're getting a chance to capture that little moment in time and be up against. I mean, God, I mean, some phenomenal photographers that have shot them
yeah.
throughout the years. That's got to be such an honor. Now, who were you shooting for when you shot that Cure concert?
When I shot The Cure, I was shooting for Paste magazine.
Okay. Um,
Yeah.
so, what are some other than magazines that you've been printed in? I was reading some of them on the website, but I was like, I don't know how up to date that may or may not be.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty up to date. I shoot a lot for Brooklyn Vegan. I used to shoot a lot for Impose magazine. I shoot for Live Nation. Um,
Live Nation. Shout out to
yeah,
Christian
yeah.
McKnight.
I've done stuff for like Consequence of Sound and a lot of different music websites and um, music publications
Yeah.
along the way.
I mean, music publications were so important to me growing up. Whether it was grabbing the voice. I remember I couldn't wait to like get to a place that had the Village Voice,
Oh
or
yeah, every
or
Tuesday night.
yeah, or I mean, my bedroom walls were just covered in like the fold outs or tear outs from like Hit Parade and like all
Yeah,
those magazines. Um, and I know a
absolutely.
lot of those now are online. Like, I mean, what Brooklyn
Yeah,
Vegan does as an online publication, I think, is just fantastic. You know, I think there's that part of me that fought some of that for so many years, the same way that I
right.
that I fought like streaming music sites. But now I love the fact that a concert happens on Friday night, and by the time I wake up Saturday, I'm reading a
Right.
review of it. I'm seeing photos from it. People are
Right.
posting video, and there's something pretty great about that because we can't go to everything. We can't see everything, you know. Uh,
Exactly.
so it's pretty amazing, and sometimes I feel like publications can get watered down because there's so many, but Brooklyn Vegan definitely seems to be one of the ones that just is always firing on all cylinders that I always go to when I want to check stuff out. Uh,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and they have great coverage and they cover so much, so it's not just like,
right.
oh, every now and then or once a week. You wake up the next morning and you kind of see everything that happened in New York. I mean, you know, and I don't want to say within one particular genre, but like in a big bubble of one particular genre,
Yeah.
you get to see really everything that happened. And Even if it's just a sneak peek and the big review comes out later, you sort of know that there's all this stuff that's going to come out, um, that happened last night. So
Yeah.
it is really cool, and it's really exciting, and it's still exciting for me to wake up and know that my stuff is going to be up, that next morning, or the 3 hours of sleep I got from when I finished editing
Yeah,
to when the photos come out.
right. There's an instant gratification to it that's pretty great when it comes as far as art forms go. You know,
Yeah.
if I'm writing and recording a new song, not even like record or something, even just a little bit of a single. I mean, I put sometimes a month into it, and then you put it out, and then you have to kind of tell people that it's out, and then wait for kind of the feedback to it, where it's pretty great to all of a sudden, bam, it's the photos are published and people are taking a look at your pictures of the Cure like the next
Yeah.
day, after this massive concert at Madison Square Garden. I mean, to instantly have that gratification must be such a great rise. I can't. Um,
Well, yeah, because you're still sort of riding the high of the show,
yeah,
so, and the same way that you are, like, you photographed it and you were at the show and you're riding that high of the show, like the fans who were at the show, or maybe the ones that, even the ones that couldn't make it, there's still that buzz about the show that's happening. It's not like a month later
yeah.
and you're like, oh yeah, that happened last month. You're still sort of thinking about it, and so yeah, it is very much instant gratification.
And definitely so much more now. I mean, God, I have never appreciated seeing live music so much as I have now. I mean, it's officially been a year since I've really seen live music. Well, not actually not true. I did
Yeah.
do last summer. I did play one like outdoor kind of place and got to see a couple friends play solo sets.
Oh,
Um,
that's cool.
but as far as a real full kind of concert experience, it's been over a
Yeah.
year now.
Yeah.
And I
Same.
have never gone that long since the first
No.
time since I first really got engulfed in the Long Island hardcore punk rock scene at like 15 years old. It's the longest I've gone, and it is strange, very
Oh
strange.
yeah, of course. It's part of your life. It's part of your lifestyle. Whether you consider it work or not, it's a big huge part of your life. And all of a sudden, for that to be gone is really strange. It's even strange for me because there's a lot of music that I only listen to live. I know that sounds
Interesting.
strange, but
No, no, not really. I know what you
there's
mean.
bands that I listen to at home a lot and they're
Right.
always around, but then there's certain bands that I absolutely love seeing live, and it's such a different experience live than listening to an album,
Oh,
that
100%.
I tend to mostly listen to those bands live. So there's this whole chunk sort of my life this chunk of music that has been missing because I,
You
haven't
can't go
seen
see them
anything
live.
live. Yeah.
Yeah. No, no, it's one of those things where and it's also the issue that I'm having a little bit with finding new music right now because a lot of times you hear a new record, even of a band that you love, and you like it. But there's times where you don't have that intimacy with it until you've seen it live. I mean,
Absolutely.
there are bands that I heard originally on albums, and it was like, okay, cool, heard it. But until I saw them live, it completely changed it for me, and then I became really super into it because it's created something else for me. There's a romanticism about it. So now,
Yeah.
even with bands that I love, they'll come out with a new single. I'm like, this song's great, but I don't know if I'll fall in love with that song until I've either sat with it for a very long time or until I've heard it live. Um,
Yeah.
so it's very strange, but that's why some of these live streams have been really cool. Um, there are bands that are playing full albums on the live streams. I've actually found myself now seeking out listening to live albums, specifically because I'm missing that
Oh,
it
that's
doesn't
interesting.
sound just like the studio. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
so even with The Cure, I've been going through the discography album by album, but I've also really been diving lately into listening to them live. And I got the 40th anniversary box set that had the two DVDs of the curation concert and the anniversary
Right.
concert. So I've watched those Blu-rays a bunch of times, and it came with the CDs. So I've been listening to that, and there's something really different about listening to the live albums, because now at least I'm tricking my brain into some of that feeling of when you're seeing live music.
Yeah, you're filling a little bit of that void.
Yeah, it's it may sound strange, but it's like as close as you're gonna get. Like I was watching the Get Up Kids live stream on Valentine's Day. They played Something to Write Home About from beginning to end, and I'm like, all right, this is cool. I've never seen them do this whole record live. Yes, it's on my TV. Yes, I'm in my living room, but you know what? I'm walking to I almost was gonna walk to my refrigerator to grab a beer and then put a $20 bill on my counter just so I felt like I was at the show. You know, I was like, I need to just trick myself. But it's been nice. I mean, uh, it was a little. I don't want to say maybe not as nice seeing Robert Smith play live at his house in his pajamas, but I was that was definitely interesting. But it makes me love him all the more because he's just
Yeah,
like, I don't
it's like
care.
expected
Yes, he's just like,
in a
I'm
way.
in my
You're like,
messy little home studio
yeah,
in my pajamas.
yeah. You're like you expect the weird yet mundane from him. This like, well, of course he's in his pajamas. Like, why wouldn't he be?
Yeah, I mean, let's face it, he was never gonna grace the cover of GQ magazine. Um, Even in his youngest, suavest days, I mean, wearing like oversized sweaters and just
Yeah,
whatever he wanted, it didn't
yeah,
matter because the music speaks way volumes over who he is. I mean, he's got the hair, he's got all the other stuff, but it's just, God, I love and respect that so much. There's no like, all right, guys, we're gonna wear these outfits on the stage tonight, and we're all gonna, wear the
no,
skinny
just
ties.
oversized hockey jerseys.
Right. Yeah. You got guitar players wearing mesh T-shirts sometimes.
Right.
So God, that is something that I've always loved about the Cure because they weren't. They're not these. You know, I mean, nowadays, I know it's really sad to say, but I know some phenomenal bands, and I'm not going to mention them and knock anybody. I know some phenomenal bands that I'm like, you know what? If these guys were just like skinny tattooed guys in tight jeans, they'd be huge. If you just closed your eyes, because there's so much now with the way that music is today and YouTube and
Right.
social media, it's
Yeah.
like if the look isn't there, it doesn't matter. But with the Cure, that never mattered at all. There's that's
Right. They
something.
didn't need a marketing tool.
No, no marketing tool, no social media push, none of that. It didn't
Right.
matter, and that's something that their songs and their albums are just so amazing to me in those ways, and through the time periods, how much they've changed, and it's still them is just crazy to me. It,
I
you
know
know,
it's
I'm like, how do you
40
do that?
something years.
Yeah, it's insane. They their first album was put out like when I was born, and
Right.
and it's like I'm still, we keep getting teased about a new album, and I'm waiting and waiting, and I'm still gonna
I
be
know.
like a
Well,
little
I've been
kid when it
waiting for
comes
like
out.
2 years now.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about it. I'm like, that's the good thing. But I guarantee you, there's gonna be no announcement. We're all just gonna wake up one day and then they're going to announce it, because if I knew beforehand, it's not like going to Tower Records and waiting till midnight to buy the CD, because they would stay up a little bit later on the days that
Right.
albums would come out. But I'm like, I would
Right.
almost stay up till like past midnight for it to drop on Spotify to listen to it. So I,
Yeah.
I'm kind of hoping they just do one of those, like we wake up and it's like, ta-da, it's out, and you're like, what?
Yeah.
I mean, you don't make your money on record sales anymore. So it's not like there
No.
is a big push to say, hey, everybody, because people will then all go to the site and order the vinyl or whatever is going on.
Exactly. 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 The drop is the marketing.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. Um, so, what would you say? What's been your favorite concert that you've shot?
Hmm.
Or like, give me a top few. I know it might be hard to narrow it down. It's like when people ask you, like, "Well, what's your favorite song?" And I'm like, "Well, what mood am I in?" you know.
I mean, The Cure is so up there. I mean, if it's not the top, it's very close too.
Right.
That's definitely one of the shows that I had that anticipation for so long, and trying so hard to get credentialed for, and then being so ecstatic when you finally get that approval. Um, and then finding yourself in the photo pit, and you're just like, you have to stay calm, because you have to just, okay, it's 3 songs, let me just get through these 3 songs, and then I
Right.
can
Yeah.
freak out.
You don't have the
um,
you don't have a 2 hour set to do it. It's just bam.
right, first 3 songs. And I remember, um, the first song started, and I was like, no way, because they start with one of my favorite songs. And
Hmm.
um, so the first 3 songs that I shot were, I think it was Planes. They opened with Plain Song.
Okay. Very common opener for them, which is a great song.
Yeah. And then Pictures of You and Close Down. So it was like a very disintegration heavy first 3 songs.
Yeah.
Um, so I was like, I can't believe that I was able to be, literally standing in front of him for those first 3 songs. Like, that was an amazing 3 songs. And then, you very quickly get ushered out of the photo pit, so you wrap up all your stuff, and then,
Yeah.
travel halfway across the world to get to the other side of MSG to find your seat. And Pat was at the show as well. So he was, he had been at his seat, for the whole show.
Right.
So I met him at our seat, and I sat down, and I started crying.
You know what? I was gonna say if you didn't say you sat down and cried, I'm gonna be very upset.
Yeah, no, I was like, because you're still in that moment and in that rush, and you're getting all your stuff together, and you're running so that you don't miss any more of the show,
Oh
running through the
yeah, yeah.
hallways of MSG to get, to your seat. And I sat down, and it just all like hit, like what had just happened. and
Yeah.
and yeah, so I started crying, and I'm like, okay, all right.
Not only that, but the romantic irony of getting to photograph the Cure while they're playing pictures of you
Yeah,
is
yeah,
amazing.
yeah. It was I was definitely surprised at the first 3 songs. And I know it sounds so silly, because you didn't capture a song, you captured images, but you sort of feel like you captured those songs in a way.
No, no,
You know.
absolutely. And you know what's funny? I remember looking when I was going through the photos on your website, trying to pick out which one I was gonna get. Um, I was thinking to myself, like, all right, this one here, Robert's grabbing the mic stand and he's like, eyes closed, mouth open, like, what was the lyric coming out of his mouth when he was shooting? Like, I was like, what song
Right,
was it? You know, like, no
right.
joke, I was thinking that. And then even on the Nine Inch Nails photos, I was like very torn because it's like, the image I bought was a little bit more of an artistic one where he's like kind of swinging the microphone up, and but then some of the other
Right.
ones where he was like very like you could tell he was really singing something loud. I'm like, oh man, that was I
There's,
and
what energy do I want on the
yeah, yeah,
wall?
yeah, exactly. Like what song do I want to feel when I look up at this photo on my wall? So I very much was like had those thoughts in my mind when I was picking out photos, and that's why I could have bought them all. Uh, now the Nine Inch Nails one, was that at Jones Beach?
Yes,
Yeah.
that photo was from Jones Beach.
Okay, yeah, I was
Um,
at that was with Soundgarden, right?
yes,
Okay, yeah, I
yes,
was at that show. That was a phenomenal show.
yeah,
I
that was
mean,
a great show.
everything from the weather that night to the set list to the backgrounds they were using. It's
Yes.
definitely a highlight concert for me, memory wise. I was super into that, and it's funny because, my fiance now, who I didn't know then, she was also at that concert. So, and we talked about that like on our first date. Like three of the bands we talked about were The Cure, Depeche Mode, and Nine Inch Nails, and that's why I was like, I want a photo from each of them from you when I was, because it was like it's three bands we love. It's bands that we
Right,
we
right.
connected with, and
They meant something. Yeah, it
yeah, yeah,
wasn't just arbitrary.
yeah. It's very cool. I mean, uh, I I only wish my house was bigger so I had more space to hang art and photos. I was like, we're gonna have to start rotating artwork out because now we've combined like you know, two people that love stuff like that and very artistic people and tour posters and everything, and I'm like, oh, we gotta mesh these together now in one household. Like right
Yeah, I've
now
run out of wall space.
I know, like right now I'm staring at a Thrill Kill Cult poster, and then I've got like an autograph poster downstairs of Jeremy Enoch from like Sunny Day Real Estate. So it's like
Nice.
I was like, all right, we got to balance out all our stuff here. But it's fun, and it's uh, another way for music lovers to really just stretch their music out, not just by listening to it, but by the photos. And
Yeah.
now, when did you first get into The Cure? When did little Esther find The Cure?
um, well, I would say it was probably disintegration era.
Okay.
That would have put me at about 13,
Mm-hmm.
I would say. Yeah, about 13. Um, I would say that's when I discovered The Cure, but not when I fell in love with The Cure. Do you
Right.
know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that's when I was aware of them. Um,
Was it like a
the
video on MTV or was it radio?
radio. I
Okay.
didn't have. I don't think I had MTV yet. I got it maybe like shortly after. So I wasn't even really exposed to even really that genre of music. Um, I grew up in Queens. It was very
Right.
much all like dance and freestyle music,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
and that's just what was happening in the 80s in Queens, in New York City. And um, but I was always sort of intrigued by the the Robert Smith and like the Daniel Ash characters. Like I just
Right.
remember first getting MTV and thinking that I was all about this other type of music, but like seeing Danny Ash's hair in the So Alive video, like Love Rockets, and like you know
Right.
seeing Robert Smith, and it was just this like pull, but I was kind of like my friends didn't listen to that music, family members didn't listen to that music. I didn't really have much of a frame of reference, and I think just one day it just clicked, and
Yeah.
I was like, no, that's not what I wanted to listen to all along. Like this is what I wanted to listen to all along.
Yeah. You found that thing. You were
And
like you didn't know you were looking for it.
yeah, yeah. So I would say it was um still that disintegration era, and then I obviously had to backtrack and find
Yes.
all the previous stuff. And then Wish came out in 92 and they were everywhere. Like
Oh
that
yeah.
was,
I mean, yes.
they
See,
blew up.
that's yeah.
And
That's definitely what it was for me because growing up, I wasn't exposed to a lot of quote unquote secular music because I grew up in a very religious home. So
right.
once kind of, you know, I remember MTV and, you know, like Friday in Love video coming on and you're like, whoa, what is this? Like, I know I've heard this before. And then I do remember, here and there hearing Boys Don't Cry, but I didn't even know they were necessarily the same band, and I
Right.
kind of didn't have, you know, the freedom to really discover that stuff. And then when I saw that, that's when I then was like, all right, now I can seek this stuff out.
Right.
Now when I've saved enough like chore money and I'm sneaking off and I can buy, a cassette
I
and put it in my
think
Walkman.
my first Cure album that I know it was Disintegration, but I don't even think I bought it. I think someone made me a copy of it, in
Right.
those
Yeah.
days,
Oh
like,
my god. That was the
cassettes
best. Yep.
and
You'd
whatnot.
hand
Like,
someone a copy of something, and they're like,
uh-huh.
"What?" You're like, "Just trust me. Listen to this." And then you'd
Yeah,
trade
yeah.
off. I remember having those trades. Like, "Hey, make
Yeah,
me
yeah.
this
I
album.
think
I'll
it
make
was
you that album."
exactly. I think it was one of those things. Like, it wasn't someone just handing it to me, like, you'll like it. It was like, I want the Cure, and they wanted something else. And, that's how I acquired my first Cure album. And then, obviously went and bought whatever else I wanted from the discography
Yeah.
later on.
Yeah. And then it was cool because they were definitely a band that always had multiple albums of singles. So you could kind of
Yes.
dip your toe into uh, the back catalog without necessarily buying 6 albums or 5 albums.
Oh, I loved Standing on the Beach,
Oh
Staring at
yeah,
the Sea. I loved that compilation.
I what that's the first one that I got on CD,
Mm.
and oh man, I wore the shit out of it. And just recently, within the last couple months, I was able to get it on vinyl. The
Oh,
record store
wow.
that I go to, they kind of now know me as like the Cure guy. So when they get stuff in, they'll still post it that they have it, but they'll usually keep it aside for me and wait for me to go, "Do you have it? I'll come pick it up Saturday." That that's kind of my ritual. So I finally got that one on vinyl, and I love that one because not only the song selection, but there's something about that image too on the cover. That that black and white portrait, like,
Oh, yeah.
like I just
It's
remember being
haunting.
so drawn to it. Yes,
Yeah.
very haunting. Um, you wanted to know the story behind it. Their artwork has always been a little bit weird on the albums, and, but that might be my favorite cover of any Cure compilation or album. It is such a beautiful image, and like you said, haunting, a little creepy, but still
Yeah, because it's
relatable.
really one of the only ones that isn't like over manipulated and
Yeah,
processed. It's just a straight black and white photo. But
it's
that's the
relatable.
beauty.
All of us
Yeah.
have some form of like older person that we knew or loved or anything. Like there's just something comforting about it that
Yeah.
everybody can kind of see and go, "Oh, all right." You know, and it doesn't tell you at all what you're about to listen to necessarily
No, no,
either,
not at all.
which is very cool. So yeah, that
But that's how we picked
compilation's
out
a favorite.
albums in like the early '90s. I feel like
Yeah.
you went
Oh
to the
God.
record store, you're like, "That's a cool cover. Let me
Yep.
listen to
You'd
that."
thumb through it. You'd see a cool cover. You'd pick it up. You'd flip it over. You'd also kind of read the song titles. You'd
Yeah.
be like, "Oh, that sounds like that could be interesting." And then
Yeah.
sometimes even for the deeper music nerds, I'd be like, "All right, well, it's on this label." You know what I mean? And I'm
Oh,
like,
yeah.
like I know I like stuff from that label, so those A&R guys must know what's up. I'm gonna buy this.
Exactly.
And that's what came from like deep diving and reading music magazines. My son Elvis turned 10 in November, and now
Oh,
he just got his like first subscription to like AP magazine, and he's all
wow.
excited. and
Nice.
and, and I remember the excitement of waiting for the either waiting for them to come in when I would subscribe, or going to record stores and buying the magazines. But I discovered so much music from those. So
Of course.
I'm like, I can't wait to see where it's going to take him. So I'd like to dive into top 5 lists for you. So I gave you a little bit of homework, and I know it's hard.
It
Um,
is hard.
it's very hard. It is,
Yeah,
and that's what makes it so fun.
of course. Yeah, I think it's even harder with a band like The Cure because
It is.
everyone pegs them as this gloomy band, and but there's so much more. And you know, sometimes you want the campy, dancey stuff, and you want to picture Robert Smith doing his weird little dances, and sometimes you want the really gloomy stuff. So
Yeah, like the other night, like we're making dinner and we're in the kitchen, and I put Wild Mood Swings on, and it's like we were like being silly and dancing around the kitchen while we were cooking, you know,
right,
and
right,
it's
right,
funny because I belong to a lot of like Facebook pages because I like interacting with other Cure fans and like bouncing stuff off of people now that I have the podcast. And I can't tell you the amount of people that recently have been saying like, "Oh, Wish, that's where the band started. That was the beginning of their demise." And I was like, "What?" And I was like,
well, I think Wish is really underrated. I think it's a great album,
mhm.
but for fans of The Cure before Wish, I feel like it was sort of this infuriating letdown when everyone else caught on.
Yeah, and we've all kind of had that moment too.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
like I remember like as simple as like VOD, you know,
Mhm.
VOD getting signed to Roadrunner, and now it's like, oh, this is the album comes out, it drops, and you're all like, oh, this is just overproduced radio crap, so everybody will like it, and it almost like it wasn't yours anymore, you know.
Yeah, I think 92 was a really, while it was an amazing year for quote unquote like alternative music, it was a really rough year for the alternative music fans
Right.
because that music that was, like, well, nobody knows about this, all of a sudden everybody knew about it, even though
Yeah.
it was happening way before 92, but that was the year that everybody sort of caught on. So it was kind of like if you were in high school, the jock that bullied you for wearing black lipstick
Yeah.
bought Wish.
Right.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's
so
true.
you resented that.
Yeah. It's like you had a lot of those crossover kind of bands too. Well, or I mean, the same thing with like "Smells Like Teen Spirit" video
Right.
breaking out for Nirvana. I mean, even to the point where they chose to do it in like a high school gymnasium. That
Yeah.
video, and it almost that became like a jock anthem. But
Right.
those guys didn't give two shits about jocks. Got picked on by
Right.
jocks. you
Right.
know.
Right. So I
Yeah.
think it's like a sore point.
Yeah.
Like Friday I'm in Love just kind of killed it for everyone.
Yeah,
you
and
know
then
who
all of a sudden, you're going to prom, and there's you don't even want to be at prom, and there's Cure songs playing, and you're like, ugh, like,
right,
I
right.
want to be
So
more
it's
like
like
Daria sitting in the corner, mad.
right. So I think that it got overlooked by the people that felt resentful of this whole new like fan base. So it
Yeah,
kind of made people angry, I think, and um like I totally get it. Like I totally understand being like, "Oh, but you just made fun of me for that 6 months ago, but now now you're a fan. Okay, cool." Like
yeah, but that's the thing, because now I'm looking at like the age and demographic of some of the people that are saying this, and I'm like, dude, you're in your mid 40s, late or early 50s. Like, remove yourself from that and play this album back and really
of
tell
course.
me that you think it's a bad album, because
Of
if you
course, of
can, I
course.
can't understand how you call yourself a fan of The Cure. I just, I don't think any of their albums are bad. There's absolutely ones that I love way more than others.
Right.
And there are some that took more time to digest.
Right.
Like when I first heard Bloodflowers, I did not like it. But now I waited online on Record Store Day to get it on picture vinyl. And I
I
love it.
love blood flowers.
Yeah. And but at first when I first heard it, it wasn't Disintegration. It wasn't Wish. It wasn't
Right.
Pornography.
Right.
So there's this strange feeling of like, huh, what is it? I don't know. And maybe because it's not familiar to you. Because when you're so familiar with the band's catalog, and you have emotional attachments to songs, the new stuff is can if it doesn't hit you right away. But now, I mean, I adore that record, and I
Yeah.
definitely did not like it at first. And there's even songs on 413 Dream that I think could end up in their top 20 songs of all time if you really broke it down. But people, there's this weird sense that people have on like trying to
Right.
piss on the newer or the later things, and
Right,
I'm like,
because
it
it's
doesn't have
not
to be
from
that
their
way.
heyday.
Yeah,
So it's like, and I don't mean the band's heyday, but like their own personal,
right.
like
Yeah,
like like there's that sort of chunk of time that you romanticize, like the
right.
music that you were listening to and whatever scene you may have been in, and I think sometimes that music that happens like outside of it, you're like, but it wasn't in that time, so it doesn't belong in there
Very
somehow.
true. Yeah. No, no, you're right. Now, now they're balding in a terrible marriage, and their mortgage rate is through the roof. So, you know, but it's yeah. That's the thing. Sometimes I'm like, you need to like put sometimes you need to like throw everything out the window and just listen. You
Yeah,
know, and that's what I love about music, and that's what I've been trying to do the last year or so is I've been going back and listening to full albums. I got too used
yeah.
to playlists, shuffle,
Hmm.
compilations, and I've been really going back and falling in love with full albums because they tell a full story. They have a full, and I've also been trying to like listen to them when I'm not doing something else. Put some headphones on. Don't look at the
Right.
TV. Don't
Yeah.
you know fall back in love with it and some people just have a hard time doing that. And it is hard to put them in a top five. And that's why I love busting people's chops and doing that. So, but we're going to put a timestamp on this. This is March 2021. Right now, Esther's top five favorite Cure songs.
Right, my top five today.
Right. Yeah.
So do you want albums or songs?
So let's start with songs
Okay.
because the albums might tip off people on your song list.
Okay. Okay. I don't really have them in order. I just kind of have a group
Yeah,
of
I'm
songs.
not going to make you put them in order because that would just be cruel and unusual punishment. If some people
Yeah,
want
no,
to
I
put them
don't.
in
I don't
that
think I
order.
can handle.
Yeah, yeah, no, just give them to us starting with 5 to 1 in no particular order.
Okay. Um, Definitely Plain Song from Disintegration.
Okay,
Those opening chimes will get me every time.
right? I mean, and I hate
Um,
chimes, but on that, give them to me.
yeah, those chimes just they give you chills,
Yes,
and
set the tone for sure.
it's unmistakable. You hear those chimes, you know what's coming next, and you're probably not going to get up for the next hour because now you're going to listen to the whole album.
Yes.
um, and then also from Disintegration, Lullaby.
Oh yeah.
I just, I don't know. There's something. It's it's both creepy and
Hmm.
campy at the same time.
Yep. It was
So I think
definitely a balance and a little bit of hint of the campy to come. It was already kind of coming
right.
through in that song.
Yeah, and I think it really hits on like both sides of the Cure, both sides of Robert Smith. Like
Yeah.
he, like again, he's always portrayed as this gloomy guy, but he's always like smiling and
Hmm.
doing these silly little dances, and so I think like both sides of him are sort of in that song perfectly
Yeah.
in a way.
Yeah, no, it is.
So,
It is like the two personalities of Robert Smith in
yeah,
one song.
yeah. Um, and then I had a problem with the next one because it was between two songs off of the same album that I usually end up lumping into one in my head. But
Right.
I'm gonna go with The Strange Day off of Pornography.
Yes.
And the song that I usually lump it with, which is not going to be my next song, I'm just telling you what I lumped
Yeah,
it
yeah,
with,
no, absolutely.
is the figurehead. I kind of lump it into one song.
You know, I hinted towards that same thing in the last episode, and Brian Langan and I were talking about that record. It does feel very much. I almost feel like those songs are um, two sides of the same coin.
Yeah,
They absolutely. I feel like they do belong like they do belong next to each other, or there is a tie between them. I agree 100%. It's
yeah. So I
interesting that
couldn't
someone else
decide.
has thought that aside from me.
Yeah, I couldn't decide, but I went with the Strange Days for the official list.
Okay, strange day it is.
And then I'm going to go with The Forest from 17 Seconds.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just a great song, and it's just, I don't know, it
It's
always.
even my favorite Cure shirt that I have. That because I just love that image too. That's another one of those images. It's another one of those things that we've all like can kind of relate to. Just that simple, plain image that you know, of the forest. You're like,
Yeah.
what's in there? You know, like what kind of
Yeah, and
trouble
it's
can I get
also
into?
one of those songs that instantly, for me, brings like visuals that I've made up in my head
Yeah,
about this song. You know, it's like
absolutely.
you make the music video in your head. You know,
Yeah.
that's one of those songs, and it just instantly puts you in a different place.
Yes.
So, um, and see, I had a hard time with the songs, much harder than with the albums.
Yeah. Albums is definitely easier.
Yeah, but I think I'm gonna go with Pictures of You.
Bravo to this list, by the way. All five. If I'm making a Cure playlist, all five of those songs are usually on my playlist.
Yeah, Pictures of You is just a really special song to me. Um,
I think it's one of the most perfect songs ever written.
yeah,
And I actually was having dinner the other night with my sister and my brother in law, and I just randomly was like, you know, um, Pictures of You or Letters to Elise. I was like, which one of these songs do you guys feel is like the more like romantic or like loving kind of song? And we kind of came to the there's just nothing that tops Pictures of You. Uh, it really is. It's a perfect
yeah,
song.
it is. It is. And I was, and it's funny. I almost didn't put it in the list because not because I don't love the song, because I almost felt like I couldn't be objective about the song
Yes.
because I do love the song so much. So I almost put it in a separate list of like not my favorite songs, like the songs that mean the most to me. And I'm like, wait, why can't that be the same
Right. Yeah.
thing?
Yeah. Definitely.
So can I tell you what I had put in there if I didn't put Pictures
Yes.
of
Yes.
You?
Give me your runner up.
It was going to be Apart from Wish.
Ah. Yeah. Yeah.
I do love that song.
I do
It's
too.
just,
That song is
it's sad.
very sad.
It's just really sad.
When I want sad, I absolutely go to that song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was the toss up.
All right. Well, that is a killer top five list of songs. And now we're going to move on to top five albums, which is easier.
Yes.
Um, but let's see what side of the earlier or later spectrum you fall on.
Okay. Well, I mean, I think by now
Yeah,
we
we know what
know
your number one is for sure.
we know what my number one is. So we're just gonna get that out of the way. We don't need the suspense,
Yeah.
disintegration. Uh,
Yep, it's mine as well. So
I
I'm with
mean,
you.
it's just a perfect album. You know, it's like, you know, it's just like that scene from South Park, the Robert Smith
Oh my
episode.
god, I know.
You know, when
I gotta hunt that down
disintegration's best
online.
album
I know. I gotta play that one for my son because obviously he's only 10, so he's not like dived into South Park for a specific reason.
ever.
You know, I mean, he's very much into that kind of animation and stuff. Like, I mean, we recently watched Beavis and Butthead Take on America movie, you know, and like we watch Bob's Burgers together and The Simpsons. But I think I need to have him watch that episode, as you know, I've turned him into a little Cure fan. He'll definitely love that one.
um, and then Pornography.
Okay.
I love Pornography. It's just one of those albums that I don't, like there's albums you love, but you still don't want to hear a specific song, or you want to skip something.
Yeah.
That's not the case. Well, with Disintegration or Pornography, it's one of those albums that once I start, I want to hear the whole thing.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Even like, let's say if it comes on like on random, like back in the day on the iPod, you know,
right.
yeah. Like Disintegration is one of those albums where if one of the songs came on my iPod, I was like, okay, now I got to stop, go to the album, and listen to it all the way through, because it brings you there, and then you're like, no, I want to go down the whole ride, you know.
Yeah, so that is obviously in the goes along with the my love of the gloom.
That's so goth. Oh my god.
So goth. Um, and then I'm gonna go with Kiss Me, Kiss Me, Kiss Me.
Yeah, that's an album I didn't love until
Mm-hmm.
later on in my
Right.
Cure fandom. You know, but now I adore that record. But
Yeah, I mean
it definitely is one of the albums that, you know, when I first got into it, it had skippable songs to me. You know.
right, and I don't see it as, I don't want to say as perfect, but in the sense where maybe I might go to Kiss Me, Kiss Me, Kiss Me just for, a few songs sometimes, and
Yeah.
sometimes I'm going to listen to it all the way through. Um, but whatever songs I do go to are great, and so it deserves to be in the top
Yeah.
five. You know?
Also, it is a really cool album cover, as we
Yeah,
were discussing. Art
absolutely.
wise, that's definitely probably in there, you know, in the top couple album covers for me for them.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's one of those albums that, if you saw in the record store before social media, before Spotify, you might pick up and be like, I'll probably like this.
Yes. Or you'll be afraid of it.
Right. Depending on where you're coming from, yeah, then I'm gonna go with The Head on the Door.
Oh yeah.
Classics.
Absolutely. I mean, it might as well be a greatest hits compilation. You know, like Head on the Door is just like.
Yeah, yeah. Another one that I'm gonna listen to all the way through. And my last one, I think, might be a bit surprising because although I love the album
Okay.
as a whole, I don't pick out any one song as one of my favorite songs. So I'm going to
Interesting.
go with Blood Flowers.
Okay.
So I love Blood Flowers to listen to as an entire album. So like when I listen to Blood Flowers, I don't just go, I want to go listen to that one song.
Yeah,
That never happens.
yeah, it is definitely, you know, all those songs belong together on the album.
Yeah, like it's a specific mood that you're going for. It's just, it has to be the whole album. And
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
I
But I
agree.
do love it as a whole album. But I couldn't give you like my favorite song off the album because I think it's like all or nothing with that album.
That's definitely an interesting take.
Yeah.
And where is it? Okay, I'm just pulling up the track listing here. Because sometimes I'm also terrible with, if it's not their songs where they literally just put the name of the song is repeated over and over
Oh,
again.
I'm terrible with with song names, like
Oh, I know. I'm
absolutely
so.
horrible.
I could be like, it's number 5 on this record. I could be like, it's 5 minutes and 30 seconds long, but then the name will slip me. Yeah, Out of This World. That's
The
um,
opening track.
yeah, the opening track. I mean, they are the masters of opening tracks. The
Oh
Cure is
yeah,
literally the masters of opening tracks. And I
absolutely.
love that it ends with Blood Flowers.
Yes.
It is definitely like those. Those are great bookends songs,
Yeah,
without a doubt.
absolutely.
Um,
Yeah, there's just something about that album that, and it's strange because all my other albums are from the 80s, and then it's like boom 2000,
yeah.
with Blood Flowers.
Well, I mean,
um
if you think about like the '90s ending as a whole, and 1999 was a phenomenal year for music and movies. Um, there's like so many big movies and records came out that year, and
right.
then as far as like 2000 goes, I think it was Flowers was kind of like super important, like starting this whole new era. Um, I
Yeah,
know it may sound silly, but it, you know, when I go back and I think there weren't too many big records that year, and that is definitely probably my favorite of that year, without a doubt. Um, but
yeah, I think
99 was like banger after banger, but 2000, like I think things kind of like slowed down musically.
right,
It was a definitely a weird time in music, and then you
absolutely.
figure it had been what like 4 years in between the albums, and Wild Mood Swings, although it's a full album, was definitely recorded in a bunch of different places and different times.
Right.
So if you really think about it, like as far as like a really full blown studio album, you know, Blood Flowers was really far off from, the
Yeah,
typical Cure record in timing, you know.
yeah, and I think, you know 4 years then, when we were younger, 4 years, that's a huge amount of time to wait
Yeah.
in between albums. Now, 12 years ago, I was like, nah, that was yesterday, but 4 years then, it's like it's a lifetime to wait for another Cure album. So I think it was also so anticipated,
Right. Well,
and it was so
that's what's
exciting.
crazy. So I'm just realizing this now, and this is like major nerd numberism or whatever that's called with numbers and stuff. But the first 4 Cure records pretty much came out in 4 years. They dropped an
Right.
album every year.
Yeah.
Their last 4 records all had 4 years in between them. There was 4 years between Wild Mood Swings and Blood Flowers, 4 years from Blood Flowers to The Cure, and 4 years from The Cure to 413 Dream. That's weird.
Wow. Maybe they just slowed down in their older
I
age.
guess so. But that's such a weird coinky dink.
Yeah, yeah. And I saw them on the Blood Flowers tour, and I think I also equate the album with that show. Like
Okay.
it was an outdoor show. It started to rain, so it was like perfect
Yeah.
for the album. So I think I just equate the mood of that show with the album. I don't know. There was just something.
No,
A lot of
I have
different
that
things came
too.
together for that album.
Yeah, I have that too. My fiance Melissa and I were talking about like albums that really like helped define us or have these pivotal moments to you.
Yeah.
And I've dropped the fact that, like Tori Amos, and I know she was kind of like, "What?" like, and I was like, yeah, when I was in high school, I saw her at Jones Beach, and I remember it started raining right as she was playing like Me and a Gun, and there was just this like wave over the whole entire crowd that was
Mm-hmm.
so strong that the tie to listening to her in that time period for me was huge,
Yeah.
and that
Yeah.
I maybe wouldn't have had if I didn't have that moment in that live concert, and
Yeah.
it was, it was like a big deal where if I was going to give you 10 albums that really like helped define me, that I'd have to drop it in there. Um, in moments in my life per se. So it's like I totally get that. There's
Yeah,
absolutely those ties there.
yeah, and it also goes back to what we were saying about how live music can completely change your perception of a song or an album or an artist.
Yeah, I mean,
Seeing
I
live.
remember hearing. I'm trying to. There's who was it? Um, oh my God, I'm having such a brain fart right now. Anthony Green, sing.
Okay,
But he sings for that band, and why am I? Oh, Circus Survive. Wow, man, I've
right.
been in so much Cure talk that I'm like breaking. Circus Survive. I heard the first album and I was like, this is good. I like it. It's okay. But then I saw them at Knitting Factory, and just the whole experience in that tiny room when it was still in New York City, and how they were live, how he was singing live, how everything happened in that concert. I was like,
Yeah,
holy shit, I love this.
yeah,
And it turned me into a big fan of theirs. And it
yeah,
was it was that live moment, and I had heard the record, so it's not like when you hear an opening band for the first time and they blow you away. Like that's how I
right.
discovered at the drive-in when they were opening up for the Get Up Kids. And I just remember, thank God I stayed. I was always the guy that kind of went in a little bit early. I wanted to see all the bands. Maybe I didn't know
Yeah,
all of them, but that's how you discovered music then.
of course.
And I
Yeah.
just remember being in the back of the club with General George, and these skinny dudes with afros from Texas came on the stage and fucking blew me out of the goddamn water as the opening band. And, you know, then years later, I got to play a show with them at a bowling alley in Garden City when I was in Taking Back Sunday, and like
Nice.
right before they kind of blew up and then broke up. But you know, seeing them live was like I was just like, oh my god, I need to buy all their 7 inches. I need a T-shirt, and then I even like we followed them on that tour the next few days. We jumped in my beat up Volkswagen Jetta and just took up. We're like, we're going to see them again, and we followed the
Yeah,
tour. You know,
especially being able to see those bands in the small rooms
yeah. Oh
is
God,
just
I couldn't even
it's
imagine seeing the Cure in a small room back in the day. Could you imagine that?
no. I mean, the smallest I've ever seen them is Roseland. When Roseland was around.
I know. R.I.P.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I guess that was a small
it
room
was
for.
small for them at the time, but it's in no way, a small club.
No, 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 definitely. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
um, I remember seeing Rob Zombie there, and I was like, it was tiny for that. Like
Yeah, yeah,
I think it
yeah.
was.
So it's all relative to the band sometimes. Like
Yeah. Although
you might see.
I did see Marilyn Manson, and the only time I've ever seen Marilyn Manson because I'm not a fan, but I saw him at the Roxy in Huntington, and it was. I'm trying to remember. God, who else was on the show? I want to say it was actually a VOD show. It was definitely something very strange that he didn't belong on necessarily,
Right.
but we were like, who is this dude? Like, what is going on? And that place was small. I mean, you've been there. You went to shows there, right? Do you remember that place?
I.
I mean, I know that was a
What? I
trek
don't
from
remember.
Queens. That was definitely a
I
trek
don't
from
remember.
Queens. Yeah, because I
Yeah.
mean, I think that the Roxy in Huntington, I think closed down in like '95, maybe '96.
Right.
Might have
It's
been earlier.
possible. There's a lot of shows I don't remember being at, but I find ticket stubs. I'm like, I guess I was.
You're like, oh, I guess I did go. Check that out.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks so much for coming on and hanging out and talking Cure
Yeah.
stuff with
Thank
me.
you. This was fun.
Yeah, no, no, totally fun. Again, I want to encourage everyone to check out your website, um,
Thank
EsterSegrettoPhotography.com. I know it's a mouthful, um,
you. Yes, well.
but I'm definitely, I know I posted one of your images on my Instagram the other day, so people can go to that, follow it to your page. I know you can purchase a lot of your prints,
Yes, through
and
the website.
yeah, so people, you guys definitely need to go on there. I mean, there's just the names on this list. I mean, Iggy Pop. Oh my God! I mean, I've never seen him live, and I would kill to see him live, much less
Oh,
like
he's amazing
photograph
live.
him. Yeah, he's unbelievable. He is definitely something else. Cold Cave. I mean, Action Bronson, Motorhead. I mean, it's just like when I look at this list, I'm like, holy crap! Like it's unbelievable. Um, Idols. I don't even know how you got photographs of those guys because they are so intense when they play live. Uh, like,
Yeah, they're a bit challenging because they like strobe lights and moving around really quickly.
yeah,
So
I mean
it's like,
they are an intense band to see live for sure. And then you've got
yeah, but they're
Judas
amazing.
Priest, Guns N' Roses. I mean, no doubt, the Horrors, the Damned. I mean, god damn, this is an impressive list. I mean, I feel honored to say that I know you.
Aw. Thank you, thank you. Yeah, it's fun. It's fun, hopefully I'll be able to go back to doing that at some point soon.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it looks like this summer we will get some outdoor concerts, obviously at a smaller
Yeah.
capacity, but I think I think there's going to be a crack in the dam this summer,
Yeah.
for sure, and I'm definitely going to appreciate it so much more. I know ticket prices are going to be through the damn roof if they weren't already.
Right.
I'm waiting for somebody to write an algorithm and to sell it off to Live Nation so that bots can't buy tickets anymore, so that we don't all have
Oh,
to get price
yeah.
gouged. But
Yeah.
that's that's another that's another topic altogether.
Right.
But also, just so people know, like I want to mention as well, um, not just music photography, but what you've been documenting over the last year and a half, as well, has been some some of the most powerful photography I've ever seen. And what you've been doing through the Black Lives Movement and just the quarantine and the election. So there are some
Oh, thank
very
you.
powerful photographs on there that definitely shouldn't get grazed by as encompassing in what you do. So thank you for capturing those moments. Because I do believe that there's my kids are 10 and 13, and they're kind of living through this, and
Yeah.
one day they're going to be going back and talking about what it was like, and just some of these powerful images I think are going to you know I mean, I hope they don't get ignored in the history of humanity, but these are great stills to kind of capture what's been going on.
Thank
So
you so much.
so kudos to you for doing that. I know, I mean, it looks like you were in some situations that aren't always safe, as you've got what was going on through a lot of that. I mean, people were getting mauled by cars and pepper sprayed and all kinds of stuff, but you know
Yeah, I mean, I definitely did not. I was not in the middle of anything
too much chaos.
unsafe,
Good.
or anything like that. But it's just I can't stay home sometimes and just watch
Yeah.
things happen.
No.
Like I feel this intense need to be out there and experience it and document it, and yeah, I mean, it's like it's the least that I can do. That's just like the tipping point, to just go out there and see it and document it, and then sort of you know
Yeah.
do other stuff from there. But that's like my first step. That's my first go-to.
Yeah.
Photograph it.
No, that's amazing, and I really look forward to kind of where your career continues to take you, and all that stuff. And once all this is over, you and Pat need to come over for dinner, hang out, and we'll put on some Cure records. All right.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
All right. So tell him I said hello. Thank you for
I
being on the
will.
podcast, and
Thank
I will
you.
definitely talk to you soon.
Thank
Too
you.
late
You
to
too.
think of any words that may bring you back to earth. We spin rope around your waist. You turn, you smile, you float